With WrestleMania 41 now in the rearview mirror, we now can take a step back and look at the main event that was John Cena defeating Cody Rhodes for the WWE Championship. It would be the 17th world title in John Cena's illustrious career, breaking the record of Ric Flair. But there's a lot of people out there, whether it was in the building, whether it was online, who had some strong feelings about the main event, in particular the absence of one Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson. Now, I don't know about you guys, but me growing up as a pro wrestling fan as a young kid, I was a big fan of The Rock. It was so electrifying with his promos, his athleticism, his ability to connect with the crowd in different facets and in different ways. But now that I'm becoming older and I'm an adult and I'm watching how Dwayne Johnson, acts on TV and acts in the movies, and now when he comes back as The Rock to play wrestler, I'm a little bit conflicted. I'll always be that small young fan of The Rock, but I watch it now and sometimes I think, is his involvement a detriment to the current product? Obviously, you look no further than the build up to WrestleMania 40 last year and how the plans kind of changed and they had to make that pivot in order to make the main event work. Upon that, we saw how The Rock interacted afterwards, that one championship kind of confrontation with Cody Rhodes the night after WrestleMania 40. We then go to Bad Blood and that altercation between The Rock, Roman, Jimmy Uso, and Cody Rhodes that really led to nowhere. We saw on the Monday Night Raw episode of their debut on Netflix, and how he kind of played a baby face and didn't really acknowledge a lot of what had already taken place. Then you look at his NXT appearance, and that was a little bit odd in itself. We haven't seen too much of The Rock since then. We saw him at Elimination Chamber with the huge heel turn of John Cena, and that was the last time that we would see The Rock. And because it was such a huge moment in professional wrestling history to see John Cena turn heel, I wouldn't blame you in believing that The Rock would make an appearance this past weekend at WrestleMania 41. In fact, I did. I was expecting some sort of involvement, some sort of interference that would allow John Cena to get the victory and defeat Cody Rhodes. But alas, that wasn't the case. Travis Scott instead is the one that made the interference and cost Cody Rhodes his WWE title reign, and it left a lot of people feeling a little bit deflated and having the main event feeling a little bit underwhelming. We're now seeing reports that The Rock was never in mind to be in attendance for WrestleMania 41. In fact, he was never supposed to be involved in the event. Not a match, not a segment, not anything. So it's interesting to see why he was incorporated into the John Cena and Cody Rhodes, feud, especially during the huge heel turn of that John Cena. We've also seen reports that apparently The Rock wanted Cody Rhodes to turn heel, but Triple H and Cody Rhodes reportedly turned that idea down. So the next best thing would be John Cena. And in the grand scheme of things, I think it's a great idea. I think John Cena turning heel not only freshens up his current retirement tour, it's something that we haven't seen in 20 plus years, and it also added a level of intrigue leading into WrestleMania 41. I think we can all agree that eventually Cody Rhodes will turn heel. Maybe not now, but certainly down the line. It's something that we saw a little bit of a hint of during his last days in AEW, but now in the WWE. Although, yes, it would be extremely intriguing to see, I just don't see it being the right time to pull that trigger. You can drop a little bit of hint. You can also introduce the concept of him turning heel, but I don't think you pull the trigger just quite yet. To go back to The Rock, there's been a lot of online criticism of Dwayne Johnson, especially within these last 12 months. There's been people online and on Twitter and on YouTube and just talking about The Rock and saying how he's so willingly trying to make professional wrestling fake. He's always doing these, press conferences, these post-show interviews, talking about the business, growing up in the business, this character, the final boss. And yeah, we all are in on the idea that pro wrestling is scripted, but it's seemingly like a weird fixation of his to broadcast to everybody that it is choreographed, that it is scripted. And yes, we all know it, but we don't have to be constantly reminded of it. I also think it's very interesting that someone like The Rock was the one to introduce the idea of Cody Rhodes turning heel. Although The Rock is a part of the TKO board of directors, he's not the one in charge of creative. That'll be Triple H. He is the COO of the WWE's creative team. He's the one that's been running the show 365 days of the year. So, what I can understand, it might be a little bit frustrating for someone like The Rock to pop up here and then on any type of show, maybe cause a little bit of unwanted chaos by changing the script or having them needing to rewrite the show in order to accommodate his appearance and therefore the story that he may be involved with. This sounds eerily familiar to the days of Vincent McMahon when they would have these shows and have to constantly rewrite the shows right as the doors were opening. And I understand it may not be happening on that type of a level nowadays, but you still want to develop a level of consistency and a foundation that is strong enough so that you are prepared to write this show, next show, and even have an idea of maybe next month and so forth. That's difficult to do with someone like The Rock who just comes and goes as he pleases. By no means am I trying to trash The Rock. I'm a fan of Dwayne Johnson. I'm a fan of The Rock, but I do see these little details when it comes to the overall stories in the WWE. Everything that is attached to The Rock has had a level of criticism, good or bad. It is there. It is something that you can notice. If you're watching the product as much as we are here at the J Area Wrestling Show, and you're keeping up to date with all the pro wrestling content, then you can see the little inconsistencies when it comes to the storylines that The Rock may be attached to. So in terms of the main event of WrestleMania 41, Cena versus Cody Rhodes, by no means do I think it was a bad matchup. I think the expectations were elevated to a certain point that we as the fans were expecting something similar to WrestleMania 40, where we would see legends of the past interfere on behalf of Cena and Cody, and it would be this huge, big free-for-all that would lead to the ultimate culmination of whether or not it would be Cena capturing number 17 or Cody Rhodes being able to successfully defend the title. And what we got instead was Travis Scott, someone that we've only seen twice in the year at the Raw debut on Netflix, the Elimination Chamber, and whose theme song Fiend had been playing for about 365 days out of the year, now hyping up WrestleMania 41. But it's because of that final boss character that had so much intrigue, so much interesting details being added to the story. It was something different. We hadn't seen that level of a heel in quite some time. It took the Mr. McMahon character that was the evil authority figure, but cranked it up to an 11 because he was a physical and imposing force. It was The Rock. It was Hollywood Walk. It was the final boss. And then you add that level of expectation that John Cena is selling his soul to The Rock. They are teaming up. They are now the big bad number one and two, and we do not see The Rock. We have no hints of Dwayne Johnson. We rarely had any type of acknowledgement of The Rock at Elimination Chamber. During that build between Cody and Cena, we had one moment where John Cena made the comment of selling your soul to The Rock. Aside from that, you would not be blamed for not believing that The Rock was involved at the Elimination Chamber. It is something that I still look at and I wonder what was really the plan. Was Cody versus Cena always the idea? And if it was, the way it played out, was that supposed to be the way it was? And it begs the question that if Triple H is the COO and he's the one with the pen and paper in hand, what has The Rock came in, or maybe Ari Emanuel came in and changed certain details? Because that's another thing too. The Rock says that Ari Emanuel is the one that called up The Rock to make an appearance at the Elimination Chamber event because apparently tickets were not being sold fast enough and they weren't being sold at a rate that they were hoping to see, so they plugged in The Rock. But if that's the case, you can't just plug and play just like that. You need to have a level of consistency and idea of where we're going with in terms of the product, in terms of the story, and in terms of the consistency of everybody being involved. Because at that rate, you don't just want to throw people into a story just because you want to pop a rating or pop an attendance rating, which, by the way, the WrestleMania 41 attendance is kind of iffy as it is. They said they sold out on night one, and it was like 61,000 people. And then they sold out again the following night at 63,000. Maybe I'm wrong, but I thought when you sell out, that means you can't sell any more tickets. How can you sell out and then sell an additional 2,000 tickets and sell out that as well? Maybe that's just me being naive and not knowing the business, but I just thought that was pretty funny that they pointed that out. Nonetheless, I'm looking forward to see what will be the next step for the final boss, aka The Rock. Where does this leave Cody Rhodes, who did not make an appearance on this past week's Monday Night Raw? And now that John Cena is the WWE champion, it appears the newest challenger will be Randy Orton. I'm expecting that match to take place at Backlash, as it's going to emanate from St. Louis, Missouri, the hometown of the Viper. But I would love to hear from you guys in the comments below. Make sure to let me know what you guys thought about WrestleMania 41, The Rock's involvement. Where do we go with Cody and John Cena, and how hyped are you for the potential rematch of Randy versus John Cena at Backlash? Of course, my name is Jose Ramos Jr. If you enjoy this type of video where it's just really an open conversation and just me talking about what's going on in pro wrestling, please make sure to give the video a thumbs up. As I said, comment down below your questions, your comments, and make sure you subscribe to the channel in order to keep up to date with all the pro wrestling content that is produced here on YouTube. And of course, with that being said, my name again is Jose Ramos Jr., and I'll see you guys in the next video.